Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Comedy this hour, Robert Young in an episode of Father Knows Best from 72 years ago, January 11th, 1951, a story about missing furniture. And we thank you for joining us on this Wednesday, and you know what that means. This is the 11th day of January, 354 days remaining in the year. Alabama seceded from the Union on this date in 1861. In 1863, General John McClernand and Admiral David Dixon Porter captured the Arkansas River for the Union, the Battle of Arkansas Post. In 1863. 1902, Popular Mechanics magazine published for the first time. Grand Canyon National Monument created in 1908. In 1922, the first use of insulin to treat diabetes in a human patient. 1935, Amelia Earhart, the first woman to fly solo from Hawaii to California. 1942, Japan declared war on the Netherlands and invaded the Netherlands East Indies. 1942, the Japanese captured Kuala Lumpur. And in 1949, the first recorded case of snowfall in Los Angeles. In 1963, the Whiskey A Go-Go nightclub in Los Angeles opened. It was the first disco in the U.S. In 1964, Surgeon General Luther Leonidas Terry reported smoking may be hazardous to your health.
It is the judgment of the committee that cigarette smoking contributes substantially to mortality from certain specific diseases and to the overall death rate.
The first such statement from our government in 1964, but as far back as May 31st, 1955, Edward R. Murrow's See It Now program talked of the hazards of smoking. In 1963, the Watergate burglars trial started. 1992, Paul Simon, the first major artist to tour South Africa after the end of the cultural boycott. In 1993, Apple premiered the first personal digital assistant, the Newton.
What is Newton? Newton is digital. Newton is personal. Newton is magic. Newton is as powerful as a computer. Newton is as simple as a piece of paper. Newton is intelligent. Newton learns about you, understands you. Newton is news. Newton can receive a page. It sends faxes and soon electronic mail. Newton lets you communicate with the whole world, and if there's anything this world could use, it is more communication.
Apple's Newton did not live up to its hype, and it would go out of production 5 years later. In 1995, the WB television network began operations. In 2001, the Federal Trade Commission approved the merger of AOL and Time Warner to form AOL Time Warner. And in 2003, Illinois Governor George H. Ryan announced the decision to grant clemency to all inmates on death row. Passing away on this date in history, Francis Scott Key, also actor Jack Sue, probably best remembered for his role as on Barney Miller. But he did do a number of other things. He was the light on the Jack Benny Show. Pappy Boyington, Marine aviator from World War II. Also, the oldest son of Ozzie and Harriet, David Nelson, and actress Anita Ekberg. Let's see. Born on this date in history, the first Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, probably a bigger star today than he was in the day. Actor Lionel Stander, probably best known for his role in Heart to Heart, but he was a funny man. Auto designer Carroll Shelby, TV executive Grant Tinker, actor Rod Taylor, and singer Naomi Judd, who passed away last year, at the age of 76. Jazz musician Lee Ritenour, 71. From In Living Color and Living Single, I think her better work was on Living Single, Kim Cole, 61 years old. Singer Mary J. Blige is 52. Amanda Peet, 51, and from How to Get Away with Murder and Emily Owens, MD, Aja Naomi King, 37. Those some of the people who celebrate the 11th day of January as their birthday, and if this happens to be your birthday,
happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
You know, if you've watched the TV version of Father Knows Best, you'll know it's a dramatically different version than what you hear on the radio. The radio version of Jim Anderson, different from the other character. Jim far more sarcastic on the radio, showing he really rules over his family, sometimes to his own detriment. Jim calls his children names, something common on radio but lost in the TV series. Jim says sometimes on the radio, "What a bunch of stupid children I have." Now, Margaret, portrayed as a paragon of solid reason and patience, unless the plot calls for her to act a bit off. And Betty on radio, a status-seeking, boy-crazy teenage girl. To her, every little thing is the worst thing that could ever happen. Bud on radio, an all-American boy who always seems to need just a bit more money, though he receives a $1.25 allowance. That's nearly $14 today. Bud expected to always answer the phone, which he hates. He's shown as a somewhat dim-witted boy who takes everything literally. Jim might say, "Go jump in the lake," to which Bud would say, "Okay, Dad, which lake should I jump into?" And always the phrase, "Holy cow." On radio, Kathy, portrayed as a source of irritation. She whines, cries, and complains about her status in the family. "Why is he always pulling me?" She often is a source of money for her brother and sister, although she's in hock several years on her own allowance. In the fall 2015 magazine Films of the Golden Age, Young revealed about the radio program, "I never quite liked it because it had to have laughs, and I wanted a warm relationship show. When we moved to TV, I suggested an entirely new cast and a different perspective." And that's something you should know about Father Knows Best. And you're going to hear an episode of the radio program coming up in just a moment here from 72 years ago today, January 11th, 1951. I'm Wyatt Cox, and this is Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on a Wednesday edition. Of course, you know what that means. Here on your favorite radio station. Classic Radio Theater family, you know our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by just creating the best pillow. He created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, because, you know, I'm working like 67 hours a day. Now, Mike's offering the best deal on his Giza Dreams bed sheets ever. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. You'll never want to sleep on anything else once you slept on a set of Giza Dream sheets. A special offer for you right now. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. Call 1-800-928-4715. Use the promo code Wyatt. Or go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Wyatt. It's good on anything on the website. That number again, 1-800-928-4715. Use my promo code Wyatt. Thanks for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite station. Now, from 72 years ago today, January 11th, 1951, Robert Young in Father Knows Best.
Mother, is Maxwell House the best coffee in the whole world?
Well, your father says so, and your father knows best.
Yes, it's Father Knows Best, transcribed in Hollywood, starring Robert Young as father. A half-hour visit with your neighbors, the Andersons. Brought to you by Maxwell House, the coffee that's bought and enjoyed by more people than any other brand of coffee at any price. Maxwell House, always good to the last drop. Dame Fortune is a fickle gypsy, always blind and often tipsy. Sometimes for years and years together, she'll bless you with the sunniest weather. Then in a moment, Presto, pass. Your joys are like the withered grass. Well, I don't know about you, but that's the way it is with me. And that's the way it is with the Jim Andersons of Springfield. In the white frame house on Maple Street, fortune is definitely a sometime thing. And good or bad, the Andersons never know quite what to expect. Like this.
Jim, have you seen this part of the paper?
Oh, yes. I've read all the ones that are on the floor. Just help yourself.
Well, thank you, dear. You're very kind.
Oh, it's practically nothing. I don't know why they don't pass some laws or something. Look at this, honey. 3 more accidents. 2 people killed just because everybody's in such an all-fired hurry. Where are they going, anyway?
Who, dear?
The drivers. Go tearing around, knocking people down.
Oh, Jim, look at this. They're recovering upholstered chairs at the Interior House for $35.50.
Good for them. When you think of the lives that are lost just because people are careless or thoughtless...
Jim.
I heard you, Margaret. They're recovering chairs, and I hope they'll be very happy.
$35.50 isn't much at all, and that rose chair in the living room...
Oh, honey, you're not going to start that again, are you?
Well...
There's nothing wrong with the rose chair, and I don't see why you keep on insisting.
The rose chair is a disgrace, and you know it.
It is not. It looks homey, that's all.
It's frayed, faded, and feeble. And if that's your idea of homey...
I like furniture that looks as if it's been lived in.
By people or elephants.
Margaret, we've been through this a dozen times, and, well, I'd prefer not to discuss it right now.
We're through with the dishes, Mother. Is there anything else?
Yes, will you please tell your father that the rose chair in the living room is a disgrace?
Margaret.
The rose chair in the living room is a disgrace. Anything else?
Yes. Tell your mother I like it fine, just the way it is.
He likes it fine. Aren't you two talking to each other?
Not when it comes to chairs.
Leave me alone, will you? I don't want to guess.
But you have to. What good's a riddle if nobody tries to guess?
Well, a man tries to read a paper and you'd think it was a crime against humanity. Night after night, day after day, all I have to do is sit down...
Dad, make Kathy leave me alone, will you please?
I wasn't doing anything.
Well, whatever you weren't doing, stop it.
But I just want him to guess. Father, she's been driving us crazy with those horrible riddles all night. They aren't either horrible.
Kathy, if Betty and Bud don't want to play...
Play, Mother.
Wait a minute. There's nothing wrong with a few harmless riddles. And if that's all it takes to make your sister happy...
But you don't know her, Dad. She never stops.
I do, too, stop.
Now, Bud, let's not argue. After all, Kathy's happiness is very important.
It is?
I don't know what that means, but it's leading up to something.
What is it that has 18 legs and flies?
A baseball team. Margaret. Exactly what did you mean by that last crack?
You aren't supposed to guess it right away.
Not now, Kathy.
But...
I said not now.
Gee whiz.
One riddle and he quits.
Never mind, Bud.
Well?
What, dear?
What was the deep significance behind that last remark?
About Kathy?
Mm-hmm.
Why, not a thing, dear. I think it's wonderful of you to be so concerned over her happiness, that's all.
That's all, huh?
Of course. Naturally, making other people happy isn't important.
Margaret.
Even if it takes only a small thing like having the rose chair recovered.
But I've explained to you 1,000 times.
Are we going to have that old chair recovered?
No, dear. We like it just as it is.
What's black and white and red all over?
Margaret, if it means that much to you, have it recovered.
Why, Jim?
Have everything recovered.
Can I get a new bed, Mom?
What's black and white and red all over?
Mine goes way down in the middle.
If he's going to get a new bed, why can't I? I haven't had a new bed since I was 9 years old.
Nobody said anything about a new bed.
Bud just got through saying it.
But I didn't say you could have one.
You said to have everything recovered. And how can you recover an old bed?
What's black and white and red all over?
A newspaper. But not around here.
Couldn't you guess something else before you guess newspaper?
Bud?
It sagged so much in the middle, I'm practically sleeping on the floor.
The doorbell rang.
Joe Phillips had a book on physical culture, and you know what it said?
Bud.
It said you can't get any sleep in a bed that sags in the middle. And mine sags. In the middle.
Sleep. To get any more sleep, he'd have to be dead.
Well, you can't say that about me. I hardly sleep at all.
You're another one. If you spent half as much time doing anything else, you'd be a genius.
Jim, everyone has to sleep.
Nobody said they didn't.
What has 50 eyes and can't see?
But just because you want one chair recovered, all of a sudden everybody needs a new bed.
Daddy.
We don't have to worry about money. Haven't you heard? We're the rich Andersons. Why don't we just go out and buy new furniture every week?
Dear, no one said anything about getting new furniture.
What has 50 eyes and can't see?
I suppose beds aren't furniture.
I know, dear, but the children weren't really serious.
Why weren't we? Well?
What?
What has 50 eyes and can't see?
A potato, and leave me alone.
Gee whiz.
Who was it, Bud?
It was a moving man. He said he wanted to move the furniture.
Oh, that's fine. You've already called the moving man.
We did no such thing.
It's okay, Dad. He said he guessed he had the wrong house.
I don't know. It's gotten so that... Kathy, what are you doing?
Turning on the radio.
Well, turn it off. Don't you think it's noisy enough around here?
But I want to hear people are foolish.
Actually, they aren't moving men at all. They're two
Kathy, your father's right. Please.
Wait a minute, Margaret.
But you said...
Honey, please.
They have a regular moving van with them, and they're going to try to talk somebody out of his or her furniture.
Jim.
Margaret, listen.
For every piece of furniture these contestants succeed in moving out of the house, our sponsors, the Fuller Furniture Company, will pay $10. And to the lucky and unsuspecting householder, now listen to this.
We're listening.
The Fuller Furniture Company will replace each and every article removed with a brand new piece from its $1 million stock of quality furnishings. Yes, sir.
Jim, where are you going?
Those were the moving men. They were just here.
But what are you going to do?
Do? You can stop worrying about the rose chair, honey. We're going to get new furniture for the whole house. Hey!
Now that the holiday season is over, it's time to get back to the everyday business of living.
What did the boy say when the bee stung him?
Ow!
Right.
But...
Well, she stuck me with a pin.
Kathy...
It's a riddle, Daddy.
Don't you kids realize that this is important? Those lunk-headed contestants took so long to move the stuff out, they'll probably miss the end of the show, and we'll get nothing back but our old furniture.
But I didn't do anything, Dad.
Bud, be quiet, will you?
Jim, you think it was wise to give them all the beds?
Of course. There's no sense in doing a thing halfway.
But what if they don't bring the new ones tonight?
They have to bring them. Don't you remember? The announcer said they'd immediately replace everything they removed.
I hope you're right, dear.
What has 4 legs and whistles?
2 sailors. And look, Kathy.
Gee whiz, why do you have to know all the answers?
Because whether you believe it or not, I was once 9 years old myself.
Jim, I think he's going to say something.
Well, it's about time. All he does is talk. Never says anything.
Well, I think we'll have time for 1 or 2 more contestants before... No, wait a minute. Here they are. The moving men are back.
They made it. They're back.
Bud, will you please
Turn it
be
up a little,
still?
Betty, please.
Okay.
Tell me, did you boys have any luck?
Oh, we had a terrible time, Mr. Foreman. It was just awful.
Yeah, awful.
Why, those ungrateful...
Jim.
We must have gone to a dozen places. And one guy even said he'd sick the dog on us.
Yeah, the dog.
Why doesn't he tell them about us, the knucklehead?
Well, didn't you show the people your moving van?
Oh, sure. But they said they didn't care if we had 10 of them.
Yeah, 10 of them.
They'll have to go off the air in a minute. Why doesn't he tell them...
You mean then that you couldn't talk anyone into letting you take their furniture?
Take their furniture? I'm glad I'm alive.
Yeah, alive.
Margaret, they took practically all the furniture out of the whole house.
I know, dear.
Well, I'm awfully sorry. But as a consolation prize and for being such good sports, the Fuller Furniture Company wants you both to have...
We'll just see about that right now.
What are you going to do, Jim?
I'm going to call the station. I'll show them they can't pull a stunt like that on me and get away with it. They said they'd replace the furniture, and they're going to replace it if I have to go down there and... Hello? Now, look, this is James Anderson of 607 Maple Street. And when those men took my furniture, I'm not mistaken, I tell you. They drove up in a moving van and... Well, no, they didn't say they were from the station. They gave me some cockeyed story about losing the slip, and... You did? I see. I see. Well, thank you very much.
What did he say, Jim?
It's, well, the man said he traveled with the two contestants the whole time, and,
Yes?
well, they never came near Maple Street.
Oh, no.
Jim.
Holy cow.
I got a riddle I bet you can't answer. What happened to our
The entire run of Father Knows Best was on NBC from August of 1949 to March of 1954. Now, the TV show had a much more circuitous run. It debuted on CBS in October of 54, ran for one season, picked up then by NBC, where it ran for 3 seasons. Then NBC canceled it, went back to CBS, where it aired until 1960. Even stranger is it ran in primetime reruns on ABC for a couple of seasons. Actually, it ran on CBS for 2 years in primetime reruns, and then on ABC for a season. You're listening to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite station. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday edition of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We're listening to Father Knows Best, starring Robert Young, as it was originally broadcast on Thursday, January 11th, 1951, in the newspapers of that Thursday, 72 years ago. These were some of the headlines. Communist assault forces who drove a U.S. 2nd Division spearhead out of Wonju attacked again before dawn, and front reports said an all-out red drive down through central Korea seemed to be shaking up North Korean troops. 10,000 strong charged out of Wonju in a blinding snowstorm yesterday and beat back a tank-led task force of the 2nd Division from the edge of the Strategic Transport Center in the ice-glazed mountains of central Korea. The 5-mile gain of the American, French, and Dutch troops in the first major counterattack by Allies this year wiped out in the first hours of the communist surge out of Wonju in the face of a deadly artillery barrage. About 5 a.m., a heavy small arms and mortar assault hit the Dutch contingent of the Allied force, that according to United Press correspondent Joe Quinn in the 2nd Division territory. Quinn quoting Major General Robert B. McClure as saying, "This may be it." Economic stabilizer Alan Valentine announced last night that the government has shelved any idea of an immediate across-the-board wage price freeze. A plan for a quick price freeze to last 30 days while government considered more permanent measures had previously been under consideration. In fact, Price Director Michael V. DeSalle had prepared a tentative order calling for such a temporary freeze, but he and Valentine disclosed at a news conference that the idea had been dropped. DeSalle went on to emphasize the same goes for wages and prices. Valentine told reporters there had been so much gossip, rumor, and reports that there would be an immediate freeze on prices accompanied by the stabilizing of wages that he and DeSalle thought it would be a good idea to make an announcement. The question, though, whether the government will put price and rationing controls on meats in the near future, still up in the air. After listening to meat industry arguments that such controls would cut production and create black markets, Price Director Michael D. DeSalle said no decision had been made to place meat under price ceilings. Immediate universal military service, starting with a draft of 450,000 18-year-olds this year, urged on Congress yesterday by Defense Secretary Marshall. Its proposal to draft at 18 instead of the present induction age of 19, and a companion plan to extend the service period from the current 21 months to 27, brought immediate sharp questioning from members of a Senate Armed Services Committee. Marshall and Assistant Secretary Anna Rosenberg, his chief manpower aide, stuck tight to their original formula, however. Mrs. Rosenberg stood firm in the face of questioning by Senator Salmonstall, the Republican of Massachusetts, which brought out that the actual take of 18-year-olds this year would be 550,000, counting 775,000, which would be in college under various military schooling programs, and thousands of others in uniform, but taking special military courses in school. No signs of receding shown yesterday by the outbreak of influenza, which already has taken nearly 200 lives in Europe. In Sweden, Germany, Belgium, and England, the outbreak was slowing industrial production in some communities. There is a severe outbreak in Greenland. Officials said indications are the epidemic is caused by type A virus, one of the two principal forms of the disease. Charges that his department have led strategic materials go to Red China since outbreak of Korean War, June 25th, sharply denied yesterday by Secretary of Commerce Charles Sawyer. He said there has been complete misrepresentation or falsification of facts, and ticked off figures to show how shipments of aviation and auto fuel, kerosene, diesel oil, and other fuels have been cut off to none at all since January of 1950. He added that the freedoms guaranteed by the Bill of Rights were threatened by the bitter and unrestrained criticism of public officials. Satirical novelist whose Babbitt made him the first American to win the Nobel Prize in Literature, Sinclair Lewis, died yesterday of a heart attack in a Rome clinic. He was 65. Lewis wrote 22 books, most of them bestsellers, and nearly all of them a challenging picture of the cultural, morals, and provincial pattern of Midwest America. Those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Thursday, January 11th, 1951. On your radio, Father Knows Best, and we'll hear the conclusion in just a few moments on this Wednesday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station. Thursday's Classic Radio Theater, an episode of The Mysterious Traveler from 76 years ago, January 12th, 1947. No grave can hold me. A murderer who's about to be executed leaves very specific burial instructions, which includes the name and addresses of the judge and the 12 jurors who condemned him to death. Has the great Randolph returned from the grave? That's tomorrow's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. But let's wrap up this Wednesday edition. January 11th, 1951, 72 years ago today. Father Knows Best, starring Robert Young.
It isn't much later in Springfield. Matter of fact, it isn't much later anywhere. But Springfield's the place we're worried about. You see, the white frame house on Maple Street has never seemed roomier or more spacious. But then houses always seem roomier and more spacious when most of the furniture is missing, don't they?
Now, just a minute, Margaret. Let's all calm down and see if we can't figure this thing out.
I knew something was going to happen. I just knew it.
That's always a great help. If you knew something was going to happen, why didn't you tell me? Why keep it a secret?
I'm sorry, dear. I shouldn't have said that.
Women always know what's going to happen right after it happens.
I said I was sorry.
There's a perfectly simple solution to the whole thing. We'll just call the moving company and have them bring stuff back.
What moving company?
The one that took the furniture.
What if they were crooks?
Oh, Kathy.
What if they were hijackers and they're peddling hot furniture all over town?
Kathy, go to bed.
But how can
I said go to bed.
What bed?
Quite right, Kathy. What bed?
Father, I know it sounds ridiculous, but what if Kathy is right? Maybe they were crooks.
That's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Of all the houses in Springfield, why would they pick this one?
They didn't pick anything, dear. We chased them down the street, remember?
Well, yes, but Bud, haven't you found that book yet?
I think it's in the hall closet.
Well, hurry up. As soon as Bud finds the phone book, we'll look in the classified section, and that'll be that.
What'll be what?
We'll call the company and get our furniture back.
Father, I've been trying to tell you, we don't know the name.
We certainly do. Kathy said she saw it on the side of the truck.
And I did. It said Coast to Coast. So there.
Betty, I wish you'd learn to coast to coast.
And the driver's name was Mike.
Kathy, they're all marked coast to coast. That's where they go.
They do?
What was the other name?
What other name?
On the side of the truck.
Oh! I don't know.
Good grief.
Well, at least there's one bright side to the picture. We'll get brand new furniture from the insurance company, won't we, dear?
I've been thinking about that, Margaret, and it isn't quite as bright as you might think.
We do have burglary insurance, don't we?
Oh, yes, but where was the burglary?
Why, those men just marched right in here and took the whole...
They didn't take anything, honey. We gave it to them. We practically pushed it out the door.
You mean we can't put in a claim?
I'm afraid not.
Oh, Jim.
My beautiful bed.
You see, Margaret, now it's a beautiful bed. 2 hours ago, she couldn't sleep in it. But now it's a beautiful bed.
Well, I was used to it.
Here's the phone book, Dad. It was under the galoshes.
Well, naturally, that's the most logical place in the house to keep a phone book.
Jim, why don't we call the police?
I don't know, honey. I suppose we should, but let's call a couple of the storage companies first.
There aren't many, just 8.
That's all, just 8.
But, dear, if we call the police...
Margaret, if you don't mind, I'd rather try to find the furniture myself first. Somehow, I'm not particularly anxious to advertise this little escapade.
I'm sleepy.
Now, let's not start that, Kathleen.
But I am.
Jim, it's getting late and we've got to do something about the children.
I'll start calling right away.
Well, tell them we've got to have the beds tonight, even if they can't deliver anything else.
Suppose you let me find the company first. Which is going to be so easy. Probably turn out to be the last company in the book. Which means I got to sound like a congenital idiot to have to... Hello? AC Movers? This is James Anderson, 607 Maple Street. Yeah, I know you're closed, but I just want you to tell me... I don't want you to move any furniture. I want to know if you already have. No, you weren't supposed to. Look, I know it sounds queer, but our furniture was picked up by a couple of men. One of them was tall, had sandy hair, and... Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't know what company. Now, listen, there's no need to be insulting about it. I merely want you... But why can't you... Hello? Hello? Fine.
What did he say, dear?
Let's just say that he's not a gentleman.
Did they have the furniture, Father?
It was the night watchman, and he didn't know anything. About anything.
Jim, if all the storage companies are closed...
Honey, I'm doing everything I possibly can.
Holy cow.
What's the matter with you?
Just when I got my bed nice and broken in.
Nice and... You said your bed sagged.
Well, sure, but it sagged where I sagged.
Bud, we'll just have to make the best of it for the time being.
But where are we going to sleep?
Well, I'm afraid we'll have to see what we can arrange with the neighbors.
Honey.
Bud, how would you like to spend the night with Joe Phillips?
Say, that'd be keen.
And I can sleep next door at Patty's.
Margaret, if you'll just
Betty,
listen...
why don't you call Janie Liggett and see if you can't stay with her tonight?
I'd rather die.
Margaret, why don't we just...
Why, Betty, you've stayed at Janie's dozens of times.
Not because we didn't have any furniture.
Look, if you'll just let me say something...
I'm sure if you explain to Janie...
Explain what? That my father gave away all the beds? Who'd believe a silly thing like that?
Now, wait a minute.
She'll tell everybody on the campus, and I'll be the laughingstock of the whole school.
Listen to me, young lady. This whole thing was as much your idea as it was mine.
Jim.
Father, how can you say that?
I was perfectly happy with our furniture, just the way it was.
Jim, this is not the time...
Wasn't my idea to have the rose chair recovered, was it? You didn't hear me making any complaints about my bed.
Well, I wasn't the one who started it. Bud did.
Betty.
Me? All I said was my bed sagged in the middle, that's all.
Shall I take my blue pajamas?
It doesn't really matter whose fault it was. We've just got to
It certainly does matter whose fault it was.
Jim.
You wanted new furniture, and I was trying to get it for you. Now, if you're going to turn the whole thing around and blame it on me...
No one's blaming it on you, dear.
They certainly are.
Shall I take my blue pajamas?
I hear one more complaint out of anybody, but one more complaint, so help me out. Well, Let's not have any more complaints, that's all.
I better call Joe, huh?
You stay right where you are.
But, Dad, Mom
Margaret,
said...
Betty's right. If this thing gets around the neighborhood, we might as well move out of town.
But, dear, it wasn't our fault.
That's what I mean. So, why do anything we'll be sorry about tomorrow? Why can't we, sleep here tonight?
Sleep here?
There aren't any beds.
What's that got to do with it? Did the Pilgrim Fathers sleep on beds?
They certainly did.
Well, let's put it another way. We're Americans, raised in the tradition of adventure and free enterprise. The hardy pioneers traveling in their covered wagons across the wide prairies. Did they worry about beds?
Now we're going to play cowboys in India.
Just a minute, Bud.
I don't want to play cowboys in India.
Kathy?
I want to go over to Patty's.
Well, you can't. Oh, Margaret.
Well, you can't blame Kathy, dear. It's long past her bedtime, and the poor child is exhausted.
Well, why doesn't she go to sleep?
Where?
Right here.
On the floor, I suppose.
Well, what's wrong with that? There's a nice soft rug.
Holy cow.
Now, Kathy, listen to me.
I want to sleep at Patty's.
No, you don't. Not really. Why would you want to go over there?
All they've got is beds.
Never mind, Betty.
Jim, you aren't serious.
Of course I am. It won't be bad, honey. As a matter of fact, it'll be a lot of fun. We'll build a fire in the fireplace. We've got all those pads from the swing and the porch furniture. They'll make wonderful beds.
There's an air mattress in the attic.
Sure, we've got all kinds of things. Blankets, pillows, things the pioneers never had.
You mean we'll be pioneers?
That's right. We'll be the stalwart Andersons, camping out in the middle of the plains.
With the Indians howling and the coyotes yowling?
Kathy, go upstairs and get your blue pajamas.
And the deer in the antelope playing?
Bud, call Joe and tell him you'll be right over.
But, Dad
Margaret,
said...
if you'll just listen.
I've done all the listening I intend to.
But there's no
And
reason.
I have no intention of sleeping on the floor.
Honey, I guarantee that after the first 5 minutes...
Bud, will you please do as I ask?
I have to answer the door.
Well, answer it.
That's what I was going to do.
Mother, couldn't we please...
We are not going to sleep on the floor like a bunch of savages. Just because you and your father have a ridiculous notion about false pride.
Pride has nothing to do with it. Why, we hadn't the faintest idea.
It's back, Dad.
Huh?
The furniture's back.
Jim!
There, you see? I told you there was nothing to worry about.
Mr. Anderson?
We're right in here.
Jim, I'm so relieved.
I'm going outside, Dad.
Wait for me, Bud. I want to help, too. Creepers. Now I have to sleep in that old bed again.
Betty, if I hear one more word...
Mr. Anderson, I gotta hand it to you. What a joker.
Well, why don't we talk about it while we're bringing in the...
Yeah, I've been moving furniture for 20 years. And this is the first time I ever pick up the wrong load.
It's very amusing.
Yeah, we drove it clear out to Plainville. And when we got there, the guy tells me I got the wrong stuff.
Look, if we can just...
Laugh, I tell you, I almost died. 28 miles, and we got the wrong furniture.
I don't think he's well.
I know it's very funny, but...
Well, now, wait a minute. You ain't heard the best part yet. You know that rose-colored chair?
Yes?
Well, it got caught on a nail, and we ripped the whole back.
Oh, no.
He probably has hysterics at a funeral.
But you don't have to worry. We got insurance. We'll have the whole thing fixed up, and it won't cost you a dime.
Well, that's more like it.
And here's your bill.
Bill? For what?
Look at it. It's the silliest looking bill I ever made out in all my life.
What do you mean, bill?
$50 for moving furniture from Maple Street to Maple Street by way of plane.
Oh, no.
It's midnight now in the Anderson household, and events lead us to venture a small bit of philosophy. Children are hard to understand. For that matter, so are girls. But when you come up with a girl child, brother, that's it. Like this.
Mother, I can't do a thing with her. She just sits there and yowls.
Poor angel. This whole thing's been too much for her.
She needs a couple of good whacks. That's what she needs.
Never mind, Bud.
Margaret, what's going on up there?
Oh, it's all right, dear. We just have a little problem with Kathy.
See if you can do something. She'll wake up the whole neighborhood.
Jim, maybe you'd better speak to her.
All right, if you think it'll do any good.
All this excitement tonight, I'm afraid she's emotionally upset.
She needs a couple of good whacks. That's what she needs.
You just said that.
Well, she does.
Why aren't you kids in bed?
Who can sleep with that?
Jim, we've tried everything. All she does is wail.
She won't even stay in bed.
Okay. Give me my chair and a whip, and I'll see what I can do. Well, what seems to be the trouble up here, young lady?
She doesn't seem to have a fever.
Everything's going to be all right, sweetheart. Just tell Daddy what it's all about.
I want to be a pioneer.
Oh, Jim Backus is the mover. That was great. Father Knows Best, January 11th, 1951, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Have a great Wednesday, won't you please? Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream, where you can stream our shows, learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me there. You can find our social media links, and you can buy me a coffee. The Buy Me a Coffee money helps us acquire additional classic radio collections. Thanks for tuning in. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.